This is the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy Podcast, Episode 43, the Biennial Report Update. I'm University of Illinois Extension's Todd Gleason. Coming up, we'll walk you through the biennial report, which was just released. Trevor Sample of Illinois EPA will tell us a little bit about the nutrient loss reduction strategy in the state and where we are with this biennial report. He'll also take up the point source issues and the kinds of things that have taken place in the state to reduce nutrient loss from those areas. And then we'll discuss a bit more about the stormwater runoff as well. Ileana Brown from University of Illinois Extension will take that up for us. And Megan Dwyer from the Illinois Corn Growers Association will talk about the ag sector as a whole as it's related to nutrient loss. And then Joe Rothermel will join us, a Champaign County farmer, to tell us how he's been involved in the NLRS and what landowners and farmers can do about nutrient loss in the state. We'll begin with Trevor Sample from Illinois EPA. I asked him to tell us a little bit about himself to start with.
My name is Trevor Sample. I've been with Illinois EPA for 20 years, and I serve as the agency coordinator for the nutrient loss reduction strategy. That means I coordinate the implementation of this strategy and work closely with the Illinois Department of Agriculture and University of Illinois Extension staff who also work on this issue.
Can you give a brief background of the Illinois nutrient loss reduction strategy?
Sure. So the strategy development was led by Illinois EPA and the Illinois Department of Agriculture. A multi-sector, multi-stakeholder policy work group was formed to oversee the development. The strategy was released in 2015. It sets a long-term target of reducing total phosphorus and total nitrogen leaving the state by 45%. We also have an interim target of 15% reduction in nitrate and 25% reduction in total phosphorus. The strategy addresses nutrient loss from three main sectors: agriculture, point sources or wastewater treatment plants, and urban stormwater. And the policy work group continues to be engaged in the implementation of the strategy, and we also have 9 additional subcommittees and subgroups that address specific issues.
Do other states have a nutrient loss strategy, and how does Illinois differ?
Well, there are 12 states that make up the Hypoxia Task Force, and every state has the same long-term goal of reducing nutrient loads by 45%. Some states have different interim goals. Each state is in a different place in terms of developing or implementing their strategies. Most states focus on non-point source and reductions from agriculture, while others address different sectors like point sources and urban stormwater like we do in Illinois. Each state's structure for implementing their strategies is a little different. Some take a statewide approach, while others focus on individual watersheds. But all the states have been working together on this issue through the Hypoxia Task Force for a couple decades now.
Every 2 years, a biennial report is released that looks at where the state is in progress towards its goals in the Illinois nutrient loss strategy. Are there some highlights from the 2021 version?
You know, I think the biggest takeaway is the level of involvement that still exists 6 years after the release of the report by all of our partners in all 3 sectors. We held our nutrient strategy conference last week, and we had over 160 participants online. So that tells me that people are still very much engaged in this effort. When we report on the metrics in the report, we follow a logic model that reports on metrics such as resources, which measures money invested in the people working on nutrient loss, outreach measures, measuring the number of meetings and conferences and field days and the number of attendees. We also look at land and facility measures that track implementation of practices across all 3 sectors. And the final component is water, which is where we calculate the nutrient loads lost on a 5-year running average from the state. Some highlights of these from the 2021 biennial report include from 2019 to 2020, the ag sector reported $27 million in investments related to nutrient loss efforts. This does not include state and federal cost share programs. This is mostly funding from our partner stakeholders. During the same period, the point source sector reported over $200 million invested in implementing nutrient reduction equipment to wastewater treatment facilities to reduce total phosphorus loss. So there's been some real investments in the state the last couple of years. In terms of outreach, the ag sector reported over 1,000 events, reaching over 72,000 attendees from 2019 to 2020. This includes navigating social distancing mandates during 2020, so many organizations moved to online platforms to continue outreach efforts to farmers and others in the ag industry on nutrient loss. Looking at land and facility measures for agriculture, for instance, in 2019, there's reported 1.4 million acres of cover crops planted, representing a 135% increase from our 2011 baseline period. We also saw 11.2 million acres of cropland was reported to have reduced their phosphorus rates since 2011. On the point source side, we now have 77 major municipal wastewater treatment facilities that have phosphorus limits in their MPDS permits that are administered by the Illinois EPA. And in 2020, we calculated a 16% reduction in total phosphorus loads from all point sources. Talking a little bit about urban stormwater, there was $9 million invested in green infrastructure projects to reduce nutrient runoff from urban stormwater. Looking at the water loads, however, we have seen the nutrient loads increase. From 2015 to 2019, we saw a 25% increase in flow, primarily driven by large precipitation events in 2019. And this resulted in 13% increase in nitrate loads and a 35% increase in total phosphorus loads. So despite all of the efforts that we report in the implementation in this report, the loads are actually increasing. We think most of that is due to increase in precipitation. Some watersheds had different levels of increases, while others showed some decreases in nitrate or phosphorus. So we have some studies ongoing right now trying to determine why we are seeing some of these large differences in loads in certain watersheds. We think we can continue to see increased precipitation driven by climate change, which just makes meeting our nutrient loss goals even more challenging. We know the conservation practices that we recommend in the strategy work. The Nutrient Research and Education Council has been investing in research, researching the effectiveness of these practices for almost 10 years now. And so it's just a matter of increasing the pace and scale of adoption of these practices on the agriculture side. For agriculture, that means implementing practices on close to 22 million acres of cropland every year, especially for some of the infield practices like nutrient management, reduced tillage, and cover crops. And that's going to require significant investments in financial and technical assistance to farmers and landowners to help us meet our nutrient loss reduction goals.
Can I have you come back to the point source issues? Those were defined as the wastewater treatment plants. What are they being asked to do as it relates to nutrient loss?
Well, there's several. Our agency administers what are called National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits, and these permits limit the amount of pollutants and the type and the amount of pollutants that can be discharged from sewage treatment plants. We also can put limits in the permits that reduce the amount of nutrients. Primarily, we're focusing on total phosphorus. So there's a lot of facilities. In fact, I had just mentioned earlier that there were 77 facilities at the end of 2020 that had to meet total phosphorus permit limits, 1 milligram per liter concentration in their discharge. We're also asking all of the major municipal facilities, and we define a major facility as one that discharges 1 million gallons or more of discharge a day, to do optimization and feasibility studies for meeting certain concentrations of phosphorus. Optimization studies look at how they can optimize their existing equipment to reduce phosphorus levels, and then feasibility studies on the feasibility of installing new equipment that would reduce phosphorus levels. There's also a concept called nutrient assessment reduction plans, or we call these NARPs. And certain facilities, if they meet certain criteria to waters that they discharge to, have to develop these watershed plans that look at not only point sources, but also include non-point source reductions that can be implemented at the watershed scale. So this is another study, another way for these facilities to determine what their phosphorus targets need to be for the watershed and how they can meet those targets to reductions through a combination of point source reductions and non-point source reduction.
Trevor Sample is with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. He helped us to define the Illinois nutrient loss reduction strategy and talked about point source pollution. Ileana Brown is with University of Illinois Extension, and she's here to discuss stormwater as it's related to nutrient losses. Thank you, Ileana, for taking the time. Can you tell me a bit about yourself and your involvement with the Illinois nutrient loss reduction strategy?
I'm Ileana Brown. I'm a water quality specialist with Illinois Extension and Illinois-Indiana Sea Grant. I also have responsibility for the campus Red Oak Rain Garden and coordinate the rainscaping training program statewide for Illinois Extension that we've imported from Purdue Extension.
Tell me a little bit about some of the important highlights that you covered during the biennial report as it relates to the stormwater section, and what exactly might that be?
Stormwater, urban stormwater, is one of our sources of nutrients in the state. In addition to agriculture and point sources, we also have a small amount of nutrients leaving our state from urban stormwater. That stormwater can cause some important local water quality impacts, and so Illinois chose to include it as part of our strategy efforts. Some of the important highlights from the 2021 report for stormwater is that the number of applicants for the Illinois EPA's Green Infrastructure Grant Opportunities Program is indicating a keen interest in stormwater projects. They received a good number of applications from all over the state. We do have stormwater partners as part of the nutrient loss reduction strategy working groups, and our partners reported that they held numerous outreach and educational events in 2019 and 2020, and especially in 2020, this is even despite the pandemic obstacles. Those partners found new ways to reach a wide audience by shifting online, hosting webinars, and finding expanded audiences. Lastly, an analysis of stormwater programs from around the state showed that 61% of municipalities offered stormwater technical assistance, and that a majority of those programs have implemented street sweepings at about 78% and leaf collection at around 64%, which are all good practices for water quality.
Can you talk about some of the green infrastructure practices that have been implemented to improve stormwater runoff and water quality as a result of the nutrient loss reduction strategy in the state?
Yeah, there are a number of landscape techniques that can improve water quality, reducing nutrients. If you manage a lawn, Illinois-Indiana Sea Grant's Lawn Lake program offers several ways to manage turf grass in a sustainable way. Another thing to consider is leaf management. There was a USGS multi-year study that showed that the number one cause of phosphorus from urban areas is autumn leaves left in the street. In some towns, it's common for people to put leaves out in the road as a practice. But a better practice is to utilize leaves by mulching them into the lawn, putting them on garden beds, or adding them to the compost pile, or bagging them up. All of the green infrastructure practices help by reducing the amount of stormwater runoff. So that helps by preventing the opportunity for those lost nutrients to be picked up by stormwater runoff. And some practices, like rain gardens, have even more benefit as they reduce phosphorus. A typical rain garden can reduce phosphorus by around 10 pounds per year by some estimates.
And what is a rain garden?
A rain garden is a cultivated landscape area where some of the soil has been removed so that it can capture that stormwater runoff that can, for example, be shed off of a home's roof or a parking lot. So the rain garden captures that runoff and allows it to infiltrate into the ground where it's utilized by the plants in the garden instead of rushing really quickly into the storm sewers and out to lakes and rivers.
Do you have any advice for homeowners and business owners who might be interested in adopting some green infrastructure practices?
If you you are new to this, a really good starter green infrastructure practice is a rain barrel. Then if you want to do more, I recommend getting some training. So I highly recommend taking Extension's rainscaping program so you can look for opportunities to do that from your local Extension office in spring of 2022. I'd also recommend that you check with your municipality for funding opportunities. Some local governments offer rebates or cost share programs that can help cover some of the cost of green infrastructure practices.
Ileana Brown is with the University of Illinois Extension, and she walked us through some of the stormwater issues related to nutrient loss in the state of Illinois. Megan Dwyer now joins us. She is with the Illinois Corn Growers Association, and we'll talk about the things that are in the agricultural sector. Thank you, Megan, for being with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Megan Dwyer. I'm the Nutrient Loss Reduction Manager for the Illinois Corn Growers Association. So I work on both policy as well as kind of farm gate programs that help farmers implement practices that address the issues of the nutrient loss reduction strategy.
What are some of the important highlights from the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy 2021 Biennial Report in the ag sector?
Yeah, there was a lot of good information in there. I think a few of the things that are worth noting, starting at the kind of overview high level, is looking at the rainfall and flow. We know we're seeing more intense and frequent rainfall events, and that report, confirms that shows that flow was up 25% in over the baseline for the average between 2015 and 2019. So again, we know that we're getting more rainfall, and we need to know how to handle that once that's here. Things looking at what was able to be accomplished in public-private funds, over $13 million in those public-private funds, not counting any state or federal cost share dollars, were spent in 2020, which is just really a really positive story to show how groups are coming together to try and address some of the issues and challenges that we face, and thinking outside of the box on how we can address that and make things happen. And then I think it's worth noting that even with the pandemic and what was happening, what was going on across the country and the world, over 72,000 people attended workshops, field days, and webinars, which, looking for resources, looking for information and things, and challenging the way they think, and looking for new things to try.
So the projects supported by the partner organizations, they're pretty important to the success of the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy. Could you provide maybe a bit of an overview of some of the ag projects supported by the partners?
Yeah, so for the Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy, the non-point source of the ag section, we've got some challenges in front of us, and we still have barriers that we need to overcome. So we feel like things around the non-operating landowners, the variable costs, equipment costs, and just kind of the risk and education associated with some of these practices. So the public-private partnerships and partnership projects are all really crucial to try and overcome those barriers. And I think it boils down to three things: research, outreach, and on-farm adoption. So, we've got a lot of research going on in both the nitrogen and phosphorus priority watersheds. University of Illinois Extension, NREC, Illinois Corn are some of the groups, working on research, Farm Bureau, obviously. Outreach, anytime we can get farmers together to be thinking about these things, whether it's an in-person field day, a webinar. The Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership did an awesome series on carbon markets, so looking at kind of how some of these practices can pay. Illinois Corn does a water testing campaign where we mail out nitrate water testing strips. And then obviously on farm, we need to make sure these practices aren't just being talked about and thought of. They need to be happening where the rubber meets the road. And so things like the Fall Covers for Spring Savings program, which is the $5 an acre crop insurance premium reduction, the precision conservation management, looking really at the economics of conservation practices, and then so many of the various cover crop programs that exist from the partners, whether that's a first-time cover crop coupons, just different partnerships to help cost share and help farmers overcome that financial burden for implementing these things are just so important. And again, it's taking all of the groups working together and finding funds outside of state and federal cost share dollars that are so limited to help ensure that practices are being implemented and we're working towards meeting the goals of the nutrient loss reduction strategy.
So finally, how do you suppose that farmers, maybe more importantly, landowners, work to adopt some of these conservation practices, or becoming part of a project or a partner with somebody within a project?
Yeah, that's great. And that's definitely one of the challenges and barriers we see in Illinois is how do we get practices implemented on rented land? And so we really think that it starts with empowering the tenant and, empowering the farmer to have those conversations and give them the tools and resources to feel comfortable going to their landowner to say, hey, I think this makes a lot of sense for not only the environmental impact, but the risk mitigation and overall soil health and long-term financial benefits to them. So things like Illinois Corn has worked with University of Illinois farmdoc team to create lease addendums. So there are 3 lease addendums that exist that can help you provide the framework to your current lease agreement. Illinois Soy, the Nature Conservancy, Illinois Corn have worked together on a conservation conversation campaign, again, helping provide some of those resources. And again, it really comes down to making sure that the farmer feels comfortable and confident in having those conversations, that they have a solid case when they're going to that landowner to show them what this means for them as well.
Megan Dwyer is with the Illinois Corn Growers Association and outlined the ag sector as it relates to the nutrient loss reduction strategy in the state of Illinois. Joe Rothermel is here. He's a Champaign County farmer and has been actively involved in the NLRS. I asked him to give me a little bit about himself and his connection to the strategy.
My name is Joe Rothermel, and I'm a farmer in southern Champaign County, 5th-generation farmer, and also chairman for the Champaign County Soil and Water Conservation District.
So is that your connection to the nutrient loss reduction strategy?
Yeah, I would say I'm connected in 2 ways. One as a farmer and one as a district board member.
Why do you think farmers should care about water quality findings in the 2021 Biennial report?
Well, it doesn't look like the needle's moving in the right direction. The report shows increased water flow, so I'm really not sure what to think of the findings, but I would say it shows some concern.
What actions do you think are necessary, if at all, for farmers and landowners to take to reach our water quality goals in the state?
Well, I'd say the best thing for farmers would be, and or land owners, would be to read through the report, trying to understand what the strategy is and what they can do to have an impact on it.
And do you have advice for farmers who are interested in conservation practices supported by the NLRS?
Yes, I would say contact your local NRCS office or the Soil and Water Conservation District, or attend a field day. There are some of those coming up. Or talk to a farmer who's already practicing some of these things that help reduce nutrient loss.
Joe Rothermel is a farmer in Champaign County, Illinois. He and Megan Dwyer of the Illinois Corn Growers Association, along with Ileana Brown from Illinois Extension and Trevor Sample of Illinois EPA, helped us to outline the just-released 2021 Biennial report on the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy. You've been listening to episode 43 of the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Podcast. The program was produced in conjunction with Illinois Extension Watershed Outreach Associates, Jennifer Jones and Rachel Curry. I'm University of Illinois Extension's Todd Gleason.